I'd say it's still technically on a festival run. I think it should be finishing up sooner rather than later. But we could send the link along to you actually, Ben, and we can have it linked to the podcast or however we want to
Okay.
put it. We want to be able to put it
Oh,
out so as many people can see it because the goal for the film, with it being our first film, because we landed in LA, we want to make a short film. This is the idea. The goal was to be able to network with creatives because were new here. We didn't know anything. So we wanted to be able to network with creatives. We wanted to be able to get it in front of people and done both those things so far. So everything else is a cherry on top.
good day, writer, director Antonio Harper and Abby Burton of the brilliant film Forward Thinking, as well as many other ventures. How are you guys today?
Doing great. Happy to be here. Happy to be talking with you on this hot LA afternoon.
Yeah, it is steaming today, but I hope wherever someone is listening to this in a car, in a house, that they're cool. So, Abby, starting with you, your story is incredible, and we'll talk about all of what brought you guys to making Forward Thinking. But I just want to talk with each one of you how you got started in filmmaking because the whole journey is just outstanding. And then to make a film Forward Thinking, which I would say is adventurous, is just incredible. So, Abby, starting with you, how did you get started behind a camera?
Yeah, so I started out just as a typical writer. I was thinking about writing books. That was high school and then college that turned into journalism because my professors all told me I had this innate sense of curiosity that would do very well in journalism. And I really did love that. But then I met Antonio our junior year of college, and
Oh,
I
cool.
realized also that journalism is not really a great area to go into at the moment. There's not a lot of job opportunities, especially in Cleveland, Ohio. So we kickstarted our filmmaking career, and I did journalism on the side. We started with 48-hour film festivals, stuff like that. And that's just where it all started.
So, did you have a background in with cameras? Were you always just intrigued with cameras, or was that something Antonio you brought in when you met her? Did you have a background in filming?
Yeah, I was minoring in film with journalism
Ah,
because I thought if I minored in film that I'd have maybe a secondary choice with
a
broadcast
backup. Yeah.
journalism, but that we met in a film editing class.
Ooh. Nice. And Antonio, your journey, did you know that you were going
Yeah,
into
yeah, I've it was lucky enough to come across that really early on. It started as just making my own comic books and notebooks, Star Wars comic book strips, and acting them out with my action figures. And that then turned into going on family trips and always having a camera in my hand. And then the summer before high school, my mom actually had me go to a summer thing at the Cleveland Heights High School that had interactive media there, and she was, "Oh, you should go and try this." I was like, "No, I wanna go look at stocks and I wanna do the Wall Street stuff, finance." She was like, "No, just try it out. It's one class." And it was there that I found out that film was an actual career path that I could venture into, and so that's where it started for me in high school and worked on PSAs for the school district, did a short film festivals and everything like that, and that's where I really started to enjoy that idea of pursuing film. And when I had to come to the decision of doing sports or doing film, it was okay, what do I see myself wanting to do 4 years from now? Do I
right.
see myself wanting to get up at 4 a.m. to run suicides or get up at 4 a.m. for a call? And I was like, I think I'll get up at 4 a.m. to go film something. And that's what pushed my decision to pursue film after high school. So that's how we got to college and one class and one day late at Abbey. And that's how everything started.
That's amazing. And so, Antonio, what would you say as advice to somebody looking to work together on something? Because you guys have been working together. You can tell me how many films you've put together. Forward Thinking, you both wrote it and directed it. So, what kind of advice, before we start talking about Forward Thinking, what kind of advice could you give somebody who's rightfully skeptical? Should I go into this? It's a personal choice, but there's a lot of different parts of that decision. So, what have you learned going through this process?
Yeah, I would say any other art form, it's definitely a medium to express yourself. So if you feel like that is your medium and that's where you thrive the most at, then go for it. I think film, like music, like painting, poetry, whatever art form you want to choose, it does take practice and it does take dedication, but it also takes that bit of uniqueness that we individually bring to whatever project we're doing. And that's something that Abby and I really thrive in working together. We bring our own unique factors to a project, perspectives, and we're open to that. And that's what I feel helps our projects turn into what they are. And so I think when somebody's thinking about whether or not they should pursue filmmaking, I say, honestly, if you have a story to tell, why not? You might as well put it out there and see what happens.
And Abby, it's the one art, right? Like you mentioned those arts, Antonio, painting and things like that. Those can be done individually, but filmmaking, I get it. Yeah, you can do all the jobs, but filmmaking, Abby, is something that you have to almost do with at least one other person, either behind the camera, in front of the camera. So I imagine that part of it, of finding somebody that you know you work well together with, has really helped you out as you've gone into your filmmaking career.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what works the best for us is when you're working, never take anything personally.
Right.
Everything is for the betterment of the group and the
Right.
project, which we learned really early on because we started working together so fast. The second thing would find each other's strengths and really let them do what they're good at.
Right.
I'm really good at organization and making sure things are feasible, and I'm good at the creative side, but that's his strong suit a little bit more than mine, I would say. So we do lean on each other for those things. If he's going off the wall creative, I can reel him back down a little bit. And if I'm going freak out that nothing's working out, he can pull me back there too.
Love it. That is great advice. So forward thinking is incredible. It screened at Slamdance. It's just one of those things that you have to watch at least twice, I think, to just fully catch everything that's going on. And then you're still, holy shit, did that just actually happen? So how, and whoever wants to take this first, how did you come up with it? How did the story came to be? And then how did you get to film it? And then I guess just for somebody who hasn't seen it or seen the trailer, can you tell them what they should expect to see when they watch it?
Yeah, just start with the where the idea came from. Definitely stemmed from 2020. A lot of the protests that were going on after the murder of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd. Abby and I went out and did a lot of protesting, went to Washington, and we saw imagery of all these victims, whether it be t-shirts, whether it be flags, whether it be in political campaigns, because it was around that time. And the idea just came to us, okay, why are those families getting any type of use from that, from those use of that image? And that's essentially where the idea itself started. We had shot a film called Ultras, which was probably strictly raw emotion of what was happening during that time. And it is pretty straight and narrow.
More of a
Um,
PSA.
Pretty much like a PSA. And when we came out to LA, the first thing we wanted to do was to make a project, and we wanted it to be something that would resonate with people, that would move people, that would start a conversation. And yeah, so that's the origin of where the idea started.
Yeah, it was Ultras was our first gut reaction. It was very serious. It was not at all funny. It was jarring. And then when we came out to LA, we wanted to it wasn't necessarily that the films are similar in story or anything like that. It's similar in the issue that they touch on, but forward thinking was meant to be more of a surreal spoonful of sugar with your medicine, try to make them laugh, but also get to the point and make them
Right.
feel uncomfortable
Right.
as the protagonist feels in that film. And that's a normal experience for people too. That's one of the funniest things. I guess it's not funny, but whenever we screen this film, there's at least one person in the audience who's, yeah, that really wasn't that mad. That
Mhm.
wasn't that
Out
like,
Unreal.
there,
yeah, like
Yeah,
outlandish,
they've
right.
yeah.
felt that before and they've gone through stuff and they've dealt with people like Dwayne and Mrs. K and all those fun characters. If you haven't watched the film, it is a surreal short film about a young Black man who is attempting to trademark his likeness in the event that he's murdered by the police. So that's what we were talking about when we were protesting, and they were selling T-shirts with George Floyd's face and painting murals of Breonna Taylor. And we were just wondering, is the family even, not that we wanted them to profit off this death that never should have happened, but it
Right.
happened, and now this family has to see that image used for other people's gain. So it's just confronting that issue in
And around that time, it was interesting because as a black man, it was one of those questions where is that possible? Is it actually? So I went down a rabbit hole of sorts where I went to looked up trademarking agents. 'Cause you have athletes who have trademarking agents and trademarks on their likeness and everything that was coming out with NCAA and those type of deals, NIL deals and everything. So it's the thought is there. And we wanted to make something that was on that border of being surreal, but also if you thought about it enough, that actually could be something possible.
Right.
and the draft of the script, because that's my big background with journalism is when he writes stuff, could this actually happen? I want this to be believable for the audience. And so the first draft of the script, I wasn't totally sold on if this could actually happen the way that we had it in the script. So we were actually calling like attorneys' offices in LA that dealt with trademarks and we're like, hey, do you have a quick second? We just need to talk to you about this. And we found an amazing paralegal that talked to us for an hour and a half, and we were able to really sort out the events of the script so that they could actually happen how they happen in the film.
And it was so funny because we were legitimately sitting there with the script and we had this paralegal on the phone after hours. I think it was 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And they were clearly at home. They took their work phone home. And we were like, we have just this question for you. So we have this project and we just wanted to run some ideas past you to be, hey, is this, and she was lovely, stayed on the phone with us and was very energetic about it and was very helpful in the long run because it helped us adjust certain ways of forms and a lot of the technical stuff that happens in the film.
I love that description of it because it does feel exactly that. You know that you're dealing with something surreal, but then when you look back on it, that actually could have happened. That's not too far of a fictional event. So I love that you're walking that line in the film. It also walks the line of race discussion that went, I think, further than most films go on this. And Tony, I know that you probably got some pushback somewhere along the way from somebody who's just, oh, why don't you make it a little bit more manageable for other people? Because I do know films like this, some people love it. Some people involved in festivals and stuff will be, oh, I'm not going to go there. That's a little too much. So was there any thought about reeling it back a little bit, or do you feel this is a vision, this is a story that you wanted to tell, and it's true to the intentions that you had?
Yeah, no, I think it is fully the intention and story that we had in mind with it because at the end of the day, the story itself does originate in a lot of personal interactions that I've had and people that I've known have had. And so we wanted to keep it true to that. And Abby said before, a lot of it is serving sugar with that medicine. And there was some pushback because it did feel it was a little too rich for certain festivals, especially
Right.
the fact that some of the language that's used by Dwayne, but we were very intentional in that build up to it because one of the beautiful things that we discovered during casting was the people that we ended up casting were very much asking questions as to why this character is acting this way, why this character is saying these things, why is this character presenting themselves in a certain way. And that really helped push the story forward because we wanted to build up the layers to that final moment where Dwayne feels he is as comfortable as he can be and completely missed all the signals that were red flag type things. And so yeah, so I think that it's it can be a bit jarring for people because I think a lot of films and even short form media tend to soften that blow a little bit. And we
100%.
didn't
Yep.
want to do that. Yeah, we didn't want to do that whatsoever. And that was something we originated with Altruist. We wanted to keep that raw factor that helps push the story forward in a meaningful way.
I love it. I just think back, I can see the ending scene, which is just fantastic. The music on that is also great. What was the music? How did you figure out the music for the film?
So that's a very funny story that I'll try to make short. I've listened to the artist Chip the Ripper. He's from Cleveland. I think he goes by King Chip now, but since high school. And that song, Interior Crocodile Alligator, has always been just a favorite of mine. And so when we were writing the script, I'm pretty sure I leaned to Antonio and I was, how funny would it be if that was the song that closed us all out? We never pictured in a million years that we'd actually be able to use it. But Chip lives in LA now, and There's just this thing about Cleveland people where if you're both from Cleveland, things are just gonna work out. Like, so I reached out to him on Instagram and I was like, "Hey, weird question. We're making this film. We'd love to show it to you. We think your song would fit really well at the end." Never expected to hear back from him, but he answered right away. He ended up signing on as executive producer, let us use
Oh,
the
cool.
music, and we have a great relationship with him now. And
And I also have to shout out 49 D Man.
yeah,
He is the artist, another Cleveland artist who went to my high school. We played basketball together, and his song is what Dwayne is referencing, and he tries to rap
yeah.
in that scene.
And that little sing-along rap, he's an
So
actual
that was an
artist.
actual artist from Cleveland. I wanted to give him some love as well because I had to hit him up and I was like, hey, so we have this scene and we wanted to use an actual rapper and the actual lyrics. And he was down for it. And it was great. It worked out perfectly for what we were trying to get across.
Yeah, so the music just ended up being that Cleveland luck. We have to call it anything.
It's
Yeah.
so great. It's so great. It makes me reflect on how important that final shot is in a short film, right? It's what you're leaving. You might be at a festival with 5 other shorts, so if you just leave the audience with a meh final shot, that's probably what they might think of the film, but if you leave the audience like you guys did, hell yeah, you're gonna remember you're like, "Damn."
Yeah, we wanted it to feel like the audience won something too, like it
Yeah.
was just a big old party.
Yeah. That was the goal, was to have Rance win at the end and have it all come together, because that's also the hard thing about short films, is making sure you have a beginning, middle, and end that
Right.
is engaging but also short and concise,
Mm.
and it gets the message across.
I feel a little guilty that we're talking about this, and then people listening will be, "I wanna watch this film," and they may not be able to. If it's still on a festival run after Slamdance, what are your thoughts on when somebody who is listening to this might be able to watch?
I'd say it's still,
June.
yeah, it's still technically on a festival run. I think it should be finishing up sooner rather than later, but we'd love to, we could send the link along to you actually, Ben, and we can have it linked to the podcast or however we wanna
Okay.
put it. We want to be able to put it
Oh,
out so as many people can see it, because the goal for the film, with it being our first film, because we landed in LA, we want to make a short film. This is the idea. The goal was to be able to network with creatives, because were new here. We didn't know anything. So we wanted to be able to network with creatives. We wanted to be able to get it in front of people, and done both those things so far. So everything else is a cherry on top. We're out there.
yay. I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's so fantastic. I think people will really enjoy it. That's great news. So, Abby, the first line on your bio on Film Independent identifies you as a disabled filmmaker, and I wanna explore with you what that means to you, and I'm curious whether it's race or disability, the balance between an unfair and untrue assumption that, "Oh, it's a cancer survivor," that's or something like that, disability, that's why she was able to do it. Or maybe somebody meets you and is, "I don't wanna bring it up. I don't wanna seem that she may be uncomfortable with talking about it." So how do you deal with that sort of conversation when you're talking with other filmmakers?
Yeah, for me, I'm really open about my disabilities. I have multiple disabilities, but I guess it does vary depending, I think, on people's experience in the industry with disability. We know it's not always great for everybody to feel open, and they can be completely honest about that. I think disability and disabled filmmakers are just that. They're just more filmmakers, and they need to have their stories told. They need to have the opportunity to show what they can do. And yeah, it's a very vulnerable thing to come out and talk about it when it's not as accepted in the industry. I think right now, disability and accessibility is to major studios just more expensive to deal with. And that's
Right,
not true. We had accessibility coordinator on our set. We had multiple disabled cast and crew, and it did not add anything to our budget to make it accessible to them. Does it take a little bit more time and coordination? Sure. Takes a little bit more honesty, but we put out our accessibility coordinator. We worked with Indivisible Entertainment. It's an anonymous survey at the beginning that goes to all cast and crew. They can put out their disability or they cannot. They don't have to tell us anything. They can say any accessibility needs that they have. And then at the beginning of each day, when our first AD did the safety meeting, right afterwards, we just did a quick access check, made sure everyone felt everything was accessible and was ready to start the day. And that was really it. So I think when we're starting conversations around disability, just if as long as you have good intentions moving forward, I
Right.
don't think anybody's gonna take it the wrong way.
And don't you feel like Slamdance did a good job of handling it in a way that didn't highlight it in a negative way? "Oh, yeah, here are some films by disabled filmmakers that they're only there because of that." They didn't make
Yep,
it into that. They made it into incorporated into the program where, yeah, they noticed it, they didn't ignore it, but they didn't also highlight it.
absolutely. I love the Unstoppable program at Slamdance. Juliet Romeo created that how many years ago and has just opened so many doors to disabled filmmakers and disabled talent and crew. Yeah, it feels seamless. It feels just like a highlight of the festival to me. It was so fun to go there and just see all the different types of films and how they touch on disability or how they don't touch on disability. Our film didn't really touch on disability, but we had disabled cast and crew, so that's what qualified us to be in that block. So it was just the best.
That's awesome. And before I leave this topic, Antonio, I just want to talk about race and indie filmmaking a little bit.
Yeah.
So I get pitched a ton on projects, and my goal is to try to have as many different voices as possible. And sometimes I realize a couple weeks ago I got something from Film Independent and it was on a film that was premiering on BET Plus, and I thought, "Oh, I haven't talked to any filmmakers that had a film on BET Plus." I thought this is really very interesting, and I just wonder about the ecosystem, right? Is that you have all these PR people pitching stuff, and I don't get very many. And part of it is I'm just a white dude who watches white dude stuff, and I don't know what I don't know, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to understand how you feel about the overall system of if there is such a thing as the Black filmmaking ecosystem of BET Plus. Some films in Atlanta, I feel that is a true thing, but do you feel that connects with the Tribeca, Sundance, Slamdance, all of that film festivals? What are your thoughts on the overall state of sort of race in indie filmmaking? That's a
Yeah,
huge
no,
question.
I think it also the approach I feel should be a lot like what Abby and I did with Forward Thinking, honestly, where our film features an actor with dwarfism, but it didn't need to. It we
Right,
when we were writing the script for this particular script, it was for a black man. That was the only qualification for this particular script, and that could have been anything that any variety of that. And what I would hope to see is, especially in the industry, is just having more people of color and underrepresented actors in roles that aren't necessarily traditionally tailored for that group. And I think that it's very easy because you just have to look at the person as an actor and
right.
how what they bring to the story. And if you look at those two things, then it at the end of the day is going to better your story. People add in all these different other aspects to casting for reasons that are selfish against the story itself
Yep.
and what the story is being told. And one of the beautiful things about Rant was Abby this whole project has just been a whole bunch of random circumstances because Abby followed Rant on social media, and Rant was in Colorado one day and he put on his story any recommendations for food in Colorado. And Abby's brother used to live in Colorado, so Abby just sent him a DM and said, "Hey, oh, this is a great spot if you're in the Avon area or whatnot." And that was the first message that was sent. And then when Abby and I landed in LA, she really wanted to get more involved with the disability community and accessibility community. And so that relationship grew a little bit. And so then when we were in the stages of, oh wow, forward thinking, this is actually going to be a thing, Rance was the first person in our mind. We were just, oh, Rance, he's been on Kings of Napa. He's been on a lot of Oprah Winfrey channel films and
Right.
shows. So it was a no brainer. It wasn't we thought of Rance and then we're okay. We need to adjust this to add in and focus in on his disability and focus in on this and focus in on that. There was no
Exactly.
change whatsoever after that was added. And we personally both believe that there are a lot of films that could be a possibility for Black and brown actors and underrepresented actors. And so I think that's something that we would love to see more of as the industry grows. And just don't be a Dwayne. Practice cultural appreciation, not cultural appropriation. There's a line where you can look at a culture and you can appreciate it without taking it and trying to make it your identity.
Mm,
Because at the end of the day, you're a visitor of that culture. It's great to
right.
there and accept it, but don't try to put the beads on and try to do too much. So I think that as long as you're doing that, as long as you're coming at it from a good place, then that's all that I think that we're asking for.
I love that. And just thinking back on it, what you're saying is subtlety, right? Just to go about things subtly. Don't highlight, oh, we're talking about disability. Oh, we're talking about race now. Do it subtly. But the thing about that is that you were able to go further along on the discussion, say about race, than you would if you were highlighting it as just this is a film about race, etc. You made it subtle, and that allowed you a little bit more room for creativity.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was something that we found as we started in the writing process. You put everything on the page and you just
Right.
put the idea as it is in your brain as best as you can on the page. And then this is where Abby is such a pro at taking that and be okay, so we see where we're going, but let's formulate it in a way that can be presentable and can be taken in by an audience that isn't going to be that's going to only be with this story for 15 minutes and isn't going to be with the story how we were for a year and a half on the story as we were writing it and everything. I think that is something to consider, especially in the writing process for sure.
Oh, I love that. So, Cleveland, you guys obviously love Cleveland. Cleveland obviously loves you. I think I've read you've gone back a few times to Cleveland, help support the growth of independent film there. Abby, what would you, if somebody has no idea about Cleveland, what would you tell them about independent film there? And then is it a great place to film there? I imagine you might be thinking about doing projects in Cleveland at some point in the future.
Yes, we dream of going back to Cleveland most days. Not that we don't love LA, obviously, LA is amazing. Cleveland is just different. It's a little bit smaller scale, so you don't have to worry about so many permits, things like that. The community there, the indie film community there is full of some of the most hardworking people you'll ever meet. You can literally put out a cast and crew call the day before and you will be crewed up the next day. That is
Wow.
just the type of people we're talking about. And yeah, indie filmmaking there is it's just I don't know, it's what they live and breathe. It's they wanna get this done and they do it. They walk the walk, they talk the talk. It's not so much in LA, you'll meet 100 people who tell you they're working on a script, and in Cleveland, you'll meet 100 people who are shooting it. It's just I don't know. I don't know how to describe Cleveland.
I
We
think
love it.
it's gritty, it's Midwest,
Mhm,
you have that chip on your shoulder a little bit, and it's a great place to work on your craft and discover your craft.
mhm,
'Cause if you're trying to go to circle all the way back to your initial question about wanting to get into filmmaking, Cleveland is a great place for that because there's so many different avenues that you can take. You have the Cleveland International Film Festival, which is a
mhm.
great film festival, but you also have the Chagrin Documentary Film Festival, which is an amazing documentary film festival. And so you have all these the Ohio Independent Film Festival, you have all these different festivals that cater to a different craft and you have that flexibility, you have that range to be or just
Yeah.
yeah, you have that range to be able to do what you want to do without worrying about
Yeah, there's not
pressure.
so much risk, there's not so much pressure. For example,
Right.
when we shot our film Altruist, it was the last film that we shot in Cleveland. We shot it at his mom and sister's salon, the salon that they've always gone to in Cleveland Heights. We just called the owner of the salon, we're like, "Hey, we're shooting this film. Could we use the front of your building and the alley next to it?" And she's, "Oh, yeah, come anytime."
And
And then
yeah, the people,
Antonio,
yeah.
when he was working at the film commission, we did a 48-hour film festival one summer, and he had gotten in good with all these different schools that he was scouting to have on the film commission database. And we called one of the schools because we were shooting the 48 and we needed a school as a location. And they were like, "Yeah, come on in. There's a
Like,
janitor
we'll have a
that'll come."
janitor there. Oh, that's great. We had a whole school for ultras. We had our friends at Black Valve. They had the rig that took up the entire. We're talking the whole sidewalk was taken up. And if you're in LA or any major city, that's a
Don't know
permit. That's a
that.
Right.
permit. No matter where it's at, you're looking at a permit for that. So it was just great to be able to
Mhm.
have that without any stress of having to come up with
Yeah, like,
funds
people
for.
wanna know what you're doing, and they're just excited to see something happening in the neighborhood. I know James Gunn's Superman just shot in Cleveland, and they shut down the entirety of Public Square in downtown, and no one was mad about it. I feel people in LA would have been super upset because it
Right.
interrupted so many roads, but people in Cleveland were just happy to see it happening.
Yeah, it's a film town and they love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So your message, go film in Cleveland.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
go film in
Go film in
Cleveland.
Cleveland. Film commission is great. Shout out Film Commission.
Antonio, can you talk about what you guys are working on next? Indie filmmakers have to have at least 10 different projects going on at once. Is there something you want to talk about that you have going on next?
Yeah, no, we're working to break out of the shorts world right now.
Ah,
Obviously, yeah, it's with everything going on, it's writing is therapy at this point. And so we're working on some things to gather. I don't know, my PR department over here, I don't
He'll,
know.
like, tell you
I was just
every
saying,
single thing,
all
every
right.
detail we're
okay,
working on.
I'll get too
I love
excited.
it. That's fair. That's fair. I appreciate Abby.
The details of the script.
What can I
I
say? Make
appreciate you reeling them in there, Abby.
But, yeah, narrative features are where
Mhm.
we really are striving to go
Yeah,
next.
and
Okay.
what's always fun is with Abby's background as a journalist and mine as just being film, we love diving into that documentary world every now and then. It's really fun to be able to
Yeah.
stretch both of those muscles and have a good time with it. So we always look out for a good documentary story whenever it comes around.
Love it. Love it, guys. Indie Film Podcast, love hyping other people's projects. You guys clearly feel that way, given your work to support indie filmmakers in Cleveland and the wider independent film audience. So, Abby, starting with you, is there a filmmaker or film that you wish more people knew about?
And actually, I would have to say, I think Antonio's might be the same because we just met up
Mm,
for coffee.
yeah.
There's a wonderful film I'd love for you to check out. It was in our block of Unstoppable. It was called Talk. And I won't give away the whole thing, but it revolves around ASL and being a coda, which is someone who interprets for their parents. And that film, I loved it. It was what, 3 minutes long?
If that, 3 minutes with credits, very straightforward, very powerful. You get the message again. It was smart
Yeah.
storytelling,
I
beautifully
love a
shot,
film that can
edited.
be done in 3 minutes, and you're just like,
Yeah.
"Wow, that was a complete good story that had me captured." They did it so well. I would highly recommend Talk from Unstoppable Slamdance.
That was directed
Awesome.
by Jessica Perlman.
Okay.
And then,
Awesome, guys.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then also I want to shout out Jeremy.
Oh, our
Yeah,
writer partner, Jeremy,
yeah,
yes.
Jeremy is great. He helped settle a lot of writing disputes along the way. Whenever we got stuck, we were all right. Call up Jeremy. All right, we got to
Yeah,
figure out.
Jeremy.
Jeremy was always the tiebreaker for story
Mhm.
structure stuff.
And Jeremy worked on Forward Thinking with you?
Mhm.
Yes, he
Yes,
was
Okay.
one of the writers, and I know he just did a PBS docuseries called
Renegades. Yeah.
Renegades, which is really great. It revolves around the disability world. I would really think you guys should check that out. It's great.
Jeremy Singh, I think his name is, right?
Yep.
Awesome, guys. This has been such a fantastic conversation. I've loved it so much. The film is forward thinking. I'll put links in the show notes where people can go watch it. It balances the surreal and real in a way that I think audiences will be impressed on. And then you leave wanting to watch it more than once because it's just to catch all the little nuances that you have. It builds up to a final scene that you just have to see. So phenomenal. I loved every second of it. I was just, this is amazing. And then you think in certain parts that you referenced earlier, is Dwayne going to go there? And you're, oh, Dwayne's going there. And you're just, wow. And that's what filmmaking should be, right? You shouldn't just sit in there, I'm going to watch another film. And then after the conclusion, it didn't challenge me in any way. I just spent 10 minutes of my life watching something that it may have been shot well, but it really didn't change my thinking, right? Forward thinking is just a mind-blowing experience, and I definitely encourage everyone to go watch it. It's phenomenal. Antonio Harper, Abby Burton, thanks for joining me today on the podcast. I'm cheering for you guys, and hopefully maybe when the podcast has some live event in Cleveland, I can have you guys there.
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Ben, for checking out the film. We're so proud of it. We love it, and we're excited to share it with more people.